Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Advanced League Tips, a series where we look at the more intricate parts of champions' kits, as well as more complex combos, input buffering, animation canceling, and interactions between their kit and item actives. Today we're going to be taking a look at Warwick, and we're going to be taking a look at a few things. There's a few input buffers on his kit that are especially interesting. There is an interaction between Flash and his Q that we're going to look at, and we're also going to be taking a look at overlaying Q as well as Stridebreaker so you can get more damage off faster. So the first thing we're going to be taking a look at is the input buffer combo between his Q and Stridebreaker. So the way his Q works is one of two different ways. So when you tap Q on an enemy, this has him lunge at a champion and he deals his magic damage from his Q as well as applying on-hit effects. However, you can hold down Q and Warwick will dash through the champion as well as dealing the damage. Now the interesting thing about how this works is say this enemy dummy were to flash over here. If I hold down Q as he's flashing, Warwick will actually end up over here and follow them through the flash. The same applies to something like a Thresh Lantern, where Warwick will follow the champion with the Thresh Lantern while the Q is active. So the combo with Stridebreaker is as follows. You want to input Q first, and as the animation is going off, you want to activate Stridebreaker. So if we do this separately, activate Q, and then we get Stridebreaker with the little dash, and the chains mean that the slow was applied to the enemy champions in the AoE as well as the damage was dealt. So if we input buffer this correctly, we go Q Stridebreaker, and the instance of damage and the... did it wrong there. The instance of damage from both Q and the Stridebreaker happen instantaneously over top of each other. So 1, 2, and you get both the dash and the slow and both instances of damage. Now one thing to note is that Gore Drinker is actually a slower combo than this. I have also tested Prowler's Claw, and Prowler's Claw is locked out of all of his combos, so he cannot fire that as an instance with any other item. The ability has to resolve, unlike Stridebreaker, in which the ability and the item active can be overlapped. So in the case of Gore Drinker and how it is slower, Gore Drinker's active is just a static form of damage, no dash. So if I go Q Gore Drinker, it actually fires slower than Stridebreaker does. Looking at that again, beginning of the animation, it waits until it resolves for the damage from Gore Drinker to go through. So picking up our Stridebreaker again, the next thing we're going to look at is an interesting interaction with his Q and Flash. So one thing you may not know about Flash is that if you input an ability out of range, input a targeted ability, mind you, out of range, and then flash to it, flash into range of it, the ability will then go off. Flash itself will not cancel that. Now, the thing that's interesting is as I had mentioned, Warwick's Q is either tap, or if I hold it down, I'll dash through. Now, let me get out of range of my Q, and I'm going to input buffer it by pressing Q and walking towards it. So press Q, start walking towards it, and then watch what happens when I tap Q. This is a tap, not a hold, and then proceed to flash. So the thing that's interesting here is that if I just tap Q, flash automatically makes it a dash through. Now, I'm not sure what exactly happened there with being out of range. Yep. So he stops briefly, but it still follows through. When I do this, I am not holding down Q at all. So this is something interesting to note if you input Q first and then flash towards the enemy. Now the next thing we're going to be looking at is an input buffer combo between Warwick's ultimate and his E. So there are two ways that you can do this. So you can activate E and then cast your ultimate, and E will automatically fear people around them. If you miss somebody, you have to activate E again to fear them. Now the thing that's interesting is that during Warwick's leap, his E isn't locked out. So you can do that. I missed it. So you can cast his ult, and press E during mid-ult in case you forget. Just make sure that you get the E off during the dash. Otherwise, if you try and cast it while you are ulting or doing your suppression, you'll be locked out of it until the end of the ultimate. And for our final input buffer and interaction with item actives, one thing you'll notice, and I'm going to ult here a couple times, is that when Warwick ults, his Q and his Stridebreaker are not locked out, which means he can cast them, but in a very specific way. So if I ult and then press Q, his next ability will be a Q. However, if I ult, I do want to hold down Q so I get the dash. Same thing happens with Stridebreaker, even though it doesn't have a hold mechanic. Activate it, press Stridebreaker to prep it, and immediately you get the Stridebreaker proc. Now, one thing to note here is that his ultimate will actually prevent the Q Stridebreaker combo, as previously mentioned, where both instances of damage fire at the same time. And so the way it works is when he ults, the last ability to be cast when his ult ends, or by the time his ult ends, will be the one that goes off. So if I try and do the Stridebreaker combo here, you'll see that Stridebreaker is the one that goes off because I pressed Q and then Stridebreaker. Now, if I do the reverse order, Stridebreaker Q, only the Q goes off. And so, even though it prevents you from doing the fast combo, what it does still allow is for an ability to be input as soon as the ultimate ends. So, there you go for all of Warwick's advanced combos. And as always, guys, thank you very much for watching, and we will see each other again tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.